Let's walk through important data governance roles you'll need to recognize for the Security Plus exam. These roles often appear in scenario-based questions where you must determine who is responsible for data decisions, protection, handling, or processing. The key is understanding who owns the data, who manages it, who handles it operationally, and who processes it on behalf of others. We'll begin with the highest level of responsibility. If a scenario describes the individual or department that is ultimately responsible for the classification, protection, and usage decisions surrounding data, you are dealing with the data owner. The data owner determines how data should be protected and who should have access to it. A common trap is confusing the data owner with the data steward, but the data owner makes the decisions, while the steward carries them out operationally. For example, a hospital's executive leadership team may decide that patient medical records must be classified as highly sensitive and only accessible by authorized healthcare staff. In that case, the hospital leadership acts as the data owner because they determine the protection requirements and access rules. Now let's move into regulatory and privacy-focused responsibilities. If the question describes an organization or entity that determines why and how personal data is processed, that is the data controller. The data controller defines the purpose and means of processing data. This role is heavily associated with privacy regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. A common confusion point is between the data controller and the data processor, but the controller makes the decisions, while the processor performs the work. For example, an online retail company may decide to collect customer email addresses for marketing campaigns and order tracking. The company acts as the data controller because it determines why the customer data is collected and how it will be used. Now let's go deeper into operational management. If the scenario focuses on maintaining data quality, enforcing policies, or managing data throughout its lifecycle, you are dealing with the data steward. A data steward is responsible for the day-to-day management and governance of data. The steward ensures policies created by the data owner are followed correctly. The key phrase to recognize is operational oversight and data quality management. For example, a database administrator responsible for ensuring employee records are accurate, updated, and properly categorized within a company database is functioning as a data steward. They are maintaining the integrity and quality of the data according to organizational policies. Now let's move into outsourced or service-based handling of data. If the question describes a third-party or external service that processes data on behalf of another organization, that is the data processor. The data processor does not own the data and does not decide why it is processed. Instead, it carries out processing activities based on instructions from the data controller. Cloud providers and payroll companies are common examples of data processors. For example, if a company hires a cloud-based payroll provider to process employee paychecks and tax information, the payroll provider is acting as the data processor because it handles the data according to the company's instructions. Now, let's bring everything together using recognition patterns, because this is how you quickly identify the correct answer on the exam. If the scenario describes deciding how data should be classified or protected, think data owner. If it involves determining why and how personal information is processed, think data controller. If it focuses on maintaining data quality and enforcing policies, think data steward. And if it describes handling or processing data for another organization, think data processor. The most important takeaway is to separate authority, governance, and operational responsibility. The data owner is accountable for the data. The data controller determines how personal data is used. The data steward manages the data operationally. And the data processor performs processing activities on behalf of the controller. If you can recognize those distinctions and watch for the common confusion points, you'll be able to quickly eliminate incorrect answers and confidently select the correct role on the exam.